Welcome to episode 66 of the Critical Fools podcast. Today we'll be discussing and reviewing a 2021 film titled A Cop Movie, or in Spanish, Una Película de Policías. This film was directed by Alonso Ruiz Palacios. It is of an interesting style of a, let's call it, I don't know what you would call it, right? It's a hybrid,
docudrama.
like a hybrid documentary, but also I guess reenactment film. So yeah, I'm actually, before we even get started, the topic, which is a loaded topic. What do you think of the style of the film? Like, was it shocking to you? Like, did the little that's the twist, right? Like, did that surprise you?
I thought it was interesting because I thought this was with a lot of movies, right? You typically get or like whatever when it's based on true events or true stories, especially with like a cop movie like this, you expect to be inspired by the experiences of a lot of different cops, which it kind of was. But it was interesting that it followed the storyline of actually two cops in general, and them actually going through the academy. The actors going through the academy was pretty interesting, and interviewing some cops. So it was definitely an interesting style, and I saw kind of like what they were going for. So I thought it was, I don't know how easy it would be to replicate this with another topic, if that makes sense. Maybe you could do it with like firefighters, but there's not.
Maybe military soldiers?
Yeah, it would have to be something that's kind of controversial. And even military soldiers, you don't really encounter on a day-to-day basis, and it's not as sort of, like I said, controversial of a profession. So I don't know. I think this is kind of like a one and done type of movie. No way.
It is, but this movie. It caught my eye because there's not a lot of information about it because it's a very niche.
I guess you could do it with politicians. I'm sure you would love that. your local representatives.
Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah. But this movie like caught my eye because it's a very specific topic that doesn't get a lot of, I would say, North America is Mexico too. Doesn't get a lot of thought in, let's say, in the film world of, let's call them the American Eurocentric film world. And I think, this specific film too, because there's some big name Mexican directors that they get all the hype, like the Bardos getting all this love, which is on my list.
Iñárritu.
Yeah, but this film caught my eye because this topic is it's a topic I'm actually have some information on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but no. First, I want to let you go in any direction you want with this film. But just giving the backstory of like how it caught my eye and why I chose to review it is because the film style is unique, and I think also the topic and the time period, like it's today's time period, but the topic is something that I think I think a lot of them fellow Americans are not aware of. I even think a lot of multi-generational Mexican Americans who have been in the States for multiple generations are not aware of either, and who no longer visit Mexico at all is what I'm getting at. And that's why it really caught my interest. So, but I'm curious, like, what's your, like, I know you give your initial thoughts on the style, but like because this movie is going to be hard to talk about scene by scene. So is there any specific scene?
It's not that. I mean, there's going to be things that we'll talk about. Kind of big picture, the one thing that I found really interesting with this is I was watching the film and I was like contrasting the public's perception of cops in Mexico versus the public's perception of cops here in the U.S. It was just very interesting because it was two totally different dynamics going on down in Mexico, right? That there's a lot of pushback that the public has against it, and for understandable reasons, because there's a lot of corruption, a lot of extortion, a lot of lack of transparency there. And there are similar dynamics here. It's just not, I would say, as extreme with most departments. You do have, obviously, countless examples you can give of corruption of law.
Yeah.
But I would say there's more public trust. Granted, we do have, incidents where you have certain, which sort of get pushed to the spotlight here in the United States, and it's led to sort of the defund the police movements, things like that. But that's only one segment of the population, whereas there's another half where you have the whole quote unquote Blue Lives Matter things where I would say your first responders, all that, they get a lot of support and love from a lot of the population as well. Whereas I don't think you have. It's hard for me to say because I've only visited Mexico a handful of times in different spots. It's hard to say exactly what the total public perception is, but I would believe that with the population is probably much lower than it is here in terms of support, in terms of trust.
Yeah, I mean, it's well. I actually, your point actually comes up in the scene, right, where the police officer, they're having that chat, right, and he's saying like, "Oh, in America, you can just pull your gun." I just love how that's such a Mexican perspective. Like from their perspective, probably that's what happens. Like, oh, you just take your gun, and go pow pow, take care of it.
But it's like no, I've had police interactions. I've seen other, and there are clearly like moments of that. I'm not saying that, but that's not like. I mean, I think we both have a lot of opinions on law enforcement, but there's like 300+ million people in the U.S. I can't imagine there's probably like 30,000 police encounters at a minimum here. Most of them are not quite as violent, but it's the ones that are the super violent are the ones that get brought to the forefront and are played on CNN constantly. Just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was it was sad and funny, like that scene, because it's like.
Oh yeah, but yeah, okay, but that dude was also like they weren't doing anything, and he was like flashing his genitals in public.
It was
it's like
on him,
yeah, but it's like okay. At the same time, you should be able to do something. There's kids around.
Yeah, but he was telling the other old man that like they have rights and whatever. But also it's like
that actually what to flash in public? That's what I was so confused about.
Yeah, I don't know Mexican law like back of my hand, so I don't know if he could have detained, but I thought what I think that scene captured was exactly your point, right? Like there is this animosity to the police because of how they operate. But then again, the docudrama does a really good portrayal of like how it's the system, right? In the end, they talk about how like the cops are, not trained well. There's, a lot of, like you said, was backroom dealing. Yeah, backroom dealing, and everybody's just looking out for themselves, which is it's a human. It's thing. It's a very human thing. But I think Mexico is a country, unfortunately, where that's exasperated a lot at every public level.
But I would say a big part is because they're so underfunded.
Yeah,
I mean, they talked about it, and most people don't quite realize this when they talk about. Yeah, like even for the Federales, you're making like $2,000 to $3,000 a year. And it's like, well, when you're making that small of a sum, it's not surprising or hard to understand why people might take a bribe if, you pull someone over in a criminal or like they even said, a lot of times, I think it was the lady who inspired Teresa's role, or the actress who played Teresa. She said, oftentimes it's not even the cops that are the ones asking for it. It's people trying to get out of an infraction or whatever. They just don't want any problems. They'll give you money. They're the ones who start the process. And then it's like, well, this is just easier to accept the money and then give some of that to your higher ups. That is like, well, oh yeah, I mean, you can understand it.
I mean, look, even I was taught as a kid, like if the police ever detain me, like just let them take all your money, you'll walk away probably. It's like
down in Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, like just
absolutely
take all the cash, and then they'll just dump you. They'll sometimes mess with you though. Like sometimes they'll keep you in prison for a day because they like doing that, or they'll just dump you in a random part of town. But they'll just, like you said, you won't be charged right. They just take your cash because they don't. Especially with foreigners, they're like, whatever, it's too much of a hassle.
But it's easy money for them to do it that way.
But it's like, I mean, go ahead.
I will say that line where she's explaining, how much they have to pay in fees a day for them to get a good patrol car, a good gun, like a good vest. It's not like beat up. I was like, dang, that is sad, man. I was like, they exploit you at every level there.
Yeah, even the insurance, right? Like you have to remember when the guy gets hit and it's like make sure
you can't do anything though.
Yeah, and like you can't take the vest off or your pant doesn't get the insurance. It's like oh my goodness, dude, it's ridiculous, dude. And the guy wants to take it off because he's probably like in pain. He's just like like naturally, and he's like, no, you gotta stick it on. I was just like, this is nuts, dude. Yeah, and that scene all starts because that's actually probably one of my favorite scenes in the film is that all starts because they pull over a car, and what you. It's funny that I expected this to happen too, because I'm not ignorant, and I was like, oh, he's gonna be like, oh, you've been, let's get
You're
some
going
cash,
on a one-way street in the other way.
yeah, yeah,
He's like, yes, eso.
And then his joke was funny. He gives her some cash. And he's like, "That's not even enough for like the." I think it's like this. I forgot. He says some joke about that's not even enough for like something, and it's like so. Then I guess they go to option B, which is shooting him. Which that's I don't feel like that's too realistic though. But I think they needed to add that. They wanted to segue into the insurance thing. That's why.
Didn't they? I don't know, because the two characters were actually based off of this. This actually could have happened. I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I bet it happened. I don't think it's common though. Like I don't.
Well, no. I think this was inspired by because she's talking about her father. I think it was actually inspired by like a situation that really happened.
And then
not too surprising, really. I mean, it's not happening all the time, but on a rogue occasion, sure.
Oh, I bet it happened in that guy's career.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I just want to clarify. I don't think like. Because sometimes films don't clarify that, and I think this film has a specific audience in mind.
Well, you don't know that this is actually like I didn't know if the storylines for the two actors were actually if it was just a culmination of stories that they wrote based off the experiences of some cops, or if it was directly just two cops, and it turned out it was directly two.
It was directly two cops.
Yeah, so
who probably pulled from other stories too, but like it's
I don't know.
Mainly the but it's
Did they really? I gotta but did they really give birth though at the beginning?
Sorry, what?
Like the opening scene where like she responds and like a lady's like
yeah, I mean I don't know, I can't fact check it, but I think
crazy. I didn't fact check that.
But when I watched this film, a lot of the themes I took out, and I think what the director is trying to highlight, especially with that first scene with the birth, is that there is a certain perspective of Mexico that people have, which ironic enough we kind of touched upon it before this call. It's the Cancun or even the places that are semi-touristy, like other parts.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be real, they're never going to these places where exactly what this director is saying, that like public services are not really going.
No, I mean I told you like years, like 14 years ago when I went to Cabo, they had hospitals that were just for tourists there.
Yeah, and look, there's another film.
That hit me the wrong way.
Yeah, there's another film we'll do eventually, the Amores Perros, but like it's the same kind of.
Oh, you want to do Amores Perros? I'm the one who told you about that film.
I know, it's a great film, one of my favorites. But I bring it up because this film also reminds you of what
that was the underbelly, dude.
Yeah, which shows you that like there is a part of Mexico, especially Mexico City is a good example of this, where the police, there's just like you said, there's just a different criteria of service. And that opening scene, I think, is to show that like she even wants to get out of it, right? She's like, oh man, like this is too much. And then by the time the ambulance comes, the baby's already born. But it's because they have nobody else. They have no other recursos, right? Like they just can't. And that's a reality that I think a lot of people who I know the audience of this film is actually probably that's the problem. I have this suspicion that the audience of this film are people who already know this. And it's really should be watched by a wider range of tourists that go to Mexico, Mexico in general, and they live a certain experience there, and they're unaware of the realities of I would say like the everyday citizen that's living in this society, and it's a shame, but I do think more people should be watching these kind of films and the Amores Perros as well. But yeah, I think that opening scene and the one with the cop and the they getting shot and the going to the car. I think all that was like for me that was actually my favorite part of the film, where like they're kind of like showing and not telling that like this is how it kind of is. Like, it's a dramatic effect, but like this is not. This is a place where unfortunately, if you're not part of the two sources of power structure in Mexico, which is the government or the cartel, you're not getting much, which is sad,
But I don't know. Since we were contrasting earlier, like the U.S., it kind of or like U.S. police versus Mexican police departments. It just I don't know. When you were talking, it kind of reminded me of that scene on The Wire where they're investigating a murder, and they're like, "Well, they've been out there for half a day," and they're like, "Well, like when's this getting wrapped up?" And they're like, "Dude, the forensic team hasn't even gotten here yet." He's like, they're like investigating like a the mayor's cat getting stolen, and the dude's like, "Swear to God, I'd give half of my pension just to work for a functional police department." Cracked me up.
That was a good scene. Yeah,
So good. I was like, obviously it's two different systems, but we have certain cities and police departments here too are less functional than others because some of them are like less funded because they have less tax dollars, things like that. You get led to a lot of dysfunction, really. I mean, just look at what happened in Memphis with their what was it, Scorpion unit that went rogue, and who knows how many like things are just like unchecked. And
no, I mean, there's probably
lots
of. I mean, I think that's a good topic for when we maybe do a film based off the
Training Day
police system. Yeah, but which we probably are well versed in. I mean, that my favorite book still one of these days, the Warrior Cop, one of the great books I recommend for all people to read. And how the police departments in our country become more militarized. But I think, like you said, like there's a police department in Mexico, but it's like it's just different, right? Like you don't even like some of those scenes would be so foreign to an American.
I'll say this: I've never thought in the U.S. that I could get out of an infraction by paying somebody off.
Yeah, like saying like like I have $400, like $100, here you go, whatever,
yeah.
Like that probably is another. You're probably getting arrested if you do that. But yeah, I think. I mean, for me, like I said, that the insurance thing was wild. I think I also learned a lot. Like I suspected that the training was subpar. I just didn't realize how subpar.
6 months and you're good to go.
Yeah,
it was really interesting when they were talking about the demographic makeup too, in terms of like usually it's a lot of indigenous people that were applying, which shocked her. But you kind of apply it to be in the academy because you come from desperate situations.
Yeah, because it's not like here in our country, it's a glorified job.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico, it's not, right?
Like no,
it's not a glorified job. It's a job with a lot of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Which again would throw off people because they don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
What people's perception is.
Sure. Well, it's two different systems, two different countries.
Yeah, which I appreciate about the film. I like how this film showed it. Like there was a lot of dialogue, but it showed it as well. It didn't just like say this is how it is, and you're just supposed to believe it. It gave you the dramatic effect. And I can vouch for not all the details, but what I've been told,
quite a few,
and what I've read. Like it's just how it's worked there for a long time. I think people think it's just because of the cartels. But from my understanding, what I've been told from family members, like it's been like obviously worse now, but it's been a trend for a long time. Like it's not
it's been bad forever, really.
Yeah, and it's not just because of the the increase in the drug cartels. It's been a systematic problem for, like you said, a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other particular scenes that I'm going to ask you about the last 20 minutes because I found that interesting with the whole dropping into the pool and stuff, but is there any other scenes like in the early stages of the film that kind of piqued your interest?
The opening, dude. I mean, clearly, because it was strong, just so just drops you right in the bucket.
Yeah. What do you think of the couple dynamic? How they talked about their relationship and it's
unsurprising. A lot of people, a lot of people meet through work, despite even though like a lot more people are meeting online. A lot of people still meet through work. And in a situation like that, well, hold on. Let me finish and then you can go ahead. In a profession like that where it's kind of high stress, they were saying they both come from like relationships that had like a lot of baggage. It's unsurprising that they connected in that way because they could both relate to one another when I'm sure a lot of people couldn't. They both had other families, didn't really get along with their exes. They're both really cops who are hated in public, and they're in a patrol car for like their entire shift. It's really not surprising at all. At least it wasn't.
No, I agree. No, the reason when you said about the online thing, it actually caught my attention recently. This is kind of unrelated, but I just want to share this detail for everybody. That
sorry, I thought you were going to disagree. I was like, well, let me finish first.
No, I actually agreed. It was just the online thing is that like. So what's interesting is that like obviously there's a huge saturation in the United States, right? Like actually younger generations It's like the people like 20 to 30. It's like half of them have used it, or
Mhm.
I think it's about half or 50 something percent. So it is prevalent in our country. What was interesting is that when I listened to the quarterly calls of like Match.com, who own Tinder and all these other ones,
Mhm.
they're trying to, obviously we love to get to 100% of the United States and Europe, but it's I think they're stagnating because that's a separate topic. But the reason I bring this up is that to your point about people meeting at work, especially in Mexico or the other places, they're trying to penetrate the like they have a percentage, the base rate, but they're trying to get to that other higher thresholds in Latin America, in other parts of the world, Europe and Latin America specifically. And so what's interesting is that like even though we're probably like a decade ahead with
Mhm.
our issues, which not for this podcast, but it's interesting how like often like we think of countries like Mexico or Latin America, or let's say I'm gonna just use Latin America and Mexico, but as like we have a certain prism, but often like they're sometimes behind a little bit in some cultural global changes, When
Very
I
much
think
so.
when I think of gay rights as well, like I know that was
They did show them patrolling the gay pride parade in Mexico City in this film.
yeah,
But that is for people who don't understand that there's a huge difference between Mexico City and the rest of Mexico.
yes, and also that's a recent phenomenon. That's like the last 8 years. Like
No, it's been going on longer in Mexico City.
maybe Mexico City. I know that
Yeah,
like
in Mexico, dude. So Mexico City is where AMLO basically has been around forever. Like it's always been a more progressive city.
yeah,
Now that contrasts with the rest of Maple. The rest of Maple has been very different.
yeah, but I agree. But like I think like even in other parts that used to be more hardcore, like they've had smaller parades. Granted, it's not to that degree of Mexico City, but there has been a change. But like how the change has been described to me, it's been like you have to think of it as like a whole generation like behind, but also it's for countries, so it's not exactly the same. But like I know my grandma says like she's shocked that like she sees more of this and
gay people are accepted.
Yeah, versus like obviously in her time, that was not the case, and not.
Yeah, they say that, but then everyone in her generation and younger loves Juan Gabriel, and that guy was definitely, even though he didn't come out with it, he was pretty flamboyant.
But you know how Mexico works. If you don't come out with this, it's not.
I saw Juan Gabriel before he died. I was like, that man is showman. I was like, but there's, even though he never came out with his personal life stuff, I was like,
you know how the logic is. If you don't come out, you're not. We know how the.
Well, let me ask you something. Did your older generation, did they like Juan Gabriel?
Of course.
National icon.
But I'm just saying, like, that's how their warped thinking is. I probably do agree with you, but like, it's just interesting how they have these loopholes.
No, I the only reason I say that is because I know some people like that, like my family. It's like, come on, guys.
It's like, no, like it's not proven. Yeah, it's not proven. In their eyes, it's not proven. Yeah, Mexico likes their whole like, what's the term? Like, I guess we do too with our JFK assassination. But when I think of that or the Colosio assassination, there's always like this. There was this national narrative that like, no, this is the real story, or like,
of course, yeah.
Oh, like yeah, maybe, but we don't have a definitive proof, so you can leave.
Colosio would be, man, if they had a movie on that, that'd be. I know they had the miniseries. That'd be great to review.
Miniseries was great.
Yeah,
but I'll say there could be a movie. I don't know though.
There might be. We'll look at it at some point. What was I going to say? Oh, going back to what you were saying with Match.com trying to penetrate Latin America. I wonder, and I'm a little skeptical that they'll be successful, only because I don't think they take into account cultural differences between Latin America and, say, Western countries. Like, there's still very much more of a sort of family connection. The way they view marriage and all that is totally different, and the way they approach things. So I'm not sure that it'll be as successful, with using apps to meet people as it would be to the same extent as here in the West.
But you also have to remember that these companies, they only care about profit, right? Or I do see them having success is unfortunately in the girlfriend experience market, if I have to use that term. Because
but I don't think they want to go that way.
Nothing surprises me about these companies anymore.
Yeah, but I haven't heard anything about that yet. So what I'm saying is, like, I get where you're going, but I'm talking about with what their current model is, their market. I don't know if it'll necessarily be as successful, or if they expect it to be as successful with the same rate that it is in the U.S. Like obviously they still have online dating. There's Tinder. You can use that stuff. But like I'm just curious if it has the same user rate as it would here.
Yeah, I don't follow closely enough. I just know that when I do listen out of curiosity, it is interesting how, to your point, they're still like at the beginning stages. So you're right, it could fail, it could grow. I don't know, but it's interesting how they're admitting that maybe they've hit the upper bound of the market here, even though there's still more people. But I think they know they're not going to be able to convince every single person to use it and pay for it, right? Because that's where the money is, right? Is the paid tiers. It's not anything else, right? So,
right.
And so obviously I understand how these, I mean, I learned from a podcast how these companies think, and they gotta get to that next phase of growth, so
it's all about growing.
Yeah. And so
what happens when you can't grow no more, though?
They should die.
We don't
Anyways,
know.
But yeah, sorry, wrapping it back to the film. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that as like I said, a cultural difference, but also like how, to your point, you can come up with certain perspectives and it's just different now, like, because you're not in that embedded culture, even though you're, trying to learn it and stuff. But it's the same way with the police, right? You can have a certain view how police function here, even with their imperfections, it's going to be completely different down there. But again, okay, so now that's kind of like the beginning stages. Then we have that little flip the script twist, right? That, oh, this is, actually a film made as a quote unquote documentary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought like the one-on-ones, especially with I thought stylistically was very interesting how he incorporated like FaceTime type of videos.
Sure. Or the little memos.
Yeah, the memos.
I like that a lot.
That was really good filmmaking. I thought that was like very creative, and I was like, I was like, this give me
like you're going through your process of training. I want to give your thoughts, because immediately, like from the get go, he's like, the actor was like, I hated the police. I never I always kind of despise them. But then he realized going through the process is a little more to it than he originally thought. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned The Wire before, but this gave me, it's like the same essence in the sense of like, you start seeing that like, if it's easy to criticize the system, but if you're in it, it's hard to actually maneuver in it than you think. That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, this is the one thing that always kind of annoyed me with at least, sorry, a little slight tangent, but with like the defund the police, or people saying that the whole ACAB, like all cops suck, blah, 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 like they would try to break through. It's like, it's not quite that simple, because I remember reading a case of a cop in Florida who was a whistleblower, and his department found out, I forgot exactly what, it was some kind of extortion scheme that they were running within a certain unit, and he whistleblowed on them, and the guy was punished, he was basically the same thing that happened to the main characters here. And it did not end well for him, but the dude had a family, and it's like, there's always that retaliation that you've got to worry about to an extent when you cross the lines of certain members of the police department, right? Even in the U.S. I mean, The Wire did a good job sort of exposing that when the main Lieutenant Daniels, even when the people on his team were doing bad, like something bad or something they shouldn't have been doing, he had to have their back, otherwise he didn't have their trust. So it's always kind of like that. And so that's why I empathize with, I was like, you can't say, I think a lot of cops would do the right thing. It's just if you have family, you got to worry about retaliation or other things that could happen when you see something that's going on that's not great, or it shouldn't be going on. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, but it's like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? Like in the end, you have to also think about your other interests, right? It's not just the idealism of justice and all this stuff. It's like, your own personal.
You gotta worry about your family.
Yeah, your own personal ambition, your family, your other incentives. Like
Training Day did a good job of that too.
That's why Training Day is one of my favorite films. Anyways, yeah, I love those multifaceted films, as people obviously can tell. I mean, I think to your point, it's easy, to have like a blank slate solution, but yeah, I mean, this film again does it really well too. Like, it's just not that simple. It's not a rip the Band-Aid off. It's like it's to the point where you unfortunately leave. I leave the film thinking like in the end, what can we really do? Like it's just you need something you need like a super seismic change to shake it up. Like it's that
one of the biggest things I still think would help. Like it wouldn't solve a lot of problems, but it had to be is you have to pay them more. You can't expect them to, dude. It's like what's crazy is if you think about it, if they offer them like $100 to get off of an infraction, that's like 10% of their yearly pay, dude.
Yeah,
that's insane. So like,
and that's why they're like, give me money. Tourists come.
I guarantee you, the average officer makes more in extortion money than they do from their actual salary, and it's probably not a ton.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, yeah, like they just get paid so low that it's unsurprising, or you can't expect them to act morally and virtuous at that level of income, where you can barely scrape by. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree. You really can't. It's like to the yeah. I mean, I feel like in this one we're agreeing a lot, so it's not.
Just because these are issues that I think.
Where's your hot take? Where's your hot take that like this doesn't concern me? You know, America. Yeah. Just kidding.
What hot take? What do you want me to say here? It's sad.
You could be like the cops are no problem, and it's the system's working.
Oh please, son.
I would have been like, if you started, even if you're messing with me, my jaw would have dropped. Like, wait, what? Wait, what? Are you brainwashed now? Like, what happened, dude? I'm gonna get you, dude. Who's he threatening? Your family? Wink if you're in danger. Because that's kind of like the statements, unfortunately, we get from actually the politicians, right? Like,
oh yeah,
it's there isn't a problem, right? If the problem is actually we need more.
Why are you arming your kids when there's kidnappings? That's not a good thing to do as a parent. It's like, well, the parents are getting kidnapped, dude. Expect that to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not the biggest AMLO fan. Have I been a fan of any? Maybe some things with Calderon, but that's about it.
Wow. He was also pretty poor.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard.
I was like, I don't know, dude. I mean, you just say that you have to say you're a fan of the platform, dude, because it's not really the president, it's the platform. You're the let's go.
Oh, come on. Peña Nieto was one of the. I remember like my parents were a little bit like fooled by him at the beginning. I was like, dude, this guy reminds me. You know who Peña Nieto reminded me of a bit was Gavin Newsom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, kind of slicked back. There was never a hair out of place. He just looked like that used car salesman kind of look where I'm like, I know you're hiding something. I was like, but you're trying to like pull the wool over everybody, but there's a lot of dirt there.
Yeah, there's a lot of dirt. I mean, to get to the top of these parties, there's just so much dirt, especially with the PRI, but even the PAN too. I mean, it's like I don't know how much Game of Thrones action you had to do stabbing people up the chain,
or the PRD, dude.
Yeah. Oh, yes, another one.
That's the current. They currently have their. Well, no. What is AMLO's party actually?
I forgot the name, but it's
like
different
Tolos or something like that.
Yeah, I don't even care personally. Yeah.
Where are you focusing on Mexico though? We need to do one on like the Basque region.
I have to find a film. I have to find a film on that, but
we did do one. Which you were shocked was the platform.
Yeah. But I mean, I have to find one that's specifically about their intricate issues. There's a TV show, but I haven't really come across any films. Like I come across more films of like, the Irish struggle.
No, we need a Basque struggle. The Kurds. That'd be a good one too.
There's probably a lot of films. My money is that there's probably films about the Kurds. I think the issue with
Turkish cinema was actually pretty big.
Yeah, I think the problem is that Spanish cinema doesn't want to really touch that subject because it's so modern.
Oh, right? Well, they don't also like them.
Yeah, so I think that's another problem. Like that's why. So, no, I mean I have a lot of the backlog anyway, so I have to sort.
Well, anyway, so what? Is there anything else you want to touch upon with this film?
Yeah, I wanted to say. My last thing was like, what you think of that ending sequence, and then I was gonna say final thoughts.
The pool.
Yeah, but also like I think there's some stuff before it, but like it was very like what's the term, like out of the body experience. I at one point I was just like, what's going on, man?
I love the slow motion. That was cool.
Yeah, that was a nice.
I think in many ways it wasn't just talking about the cop; it was also talking about the actor actually going through this experience with being decisive. Which I liked because it was like, oh, it's kind of like multi-layered in that way, like talking about the person she's playing as well as her going to play that person, which was interesting because I'm sure it wasn't easy to like go actually. It's probably a very unique experience as an actor trying to do a film like this, where you go, you actually train, you become an officer, you interact, and then you play the roles of these former officers. Like must have been very unique going through that process. And so I did like it in many ways the way they ended it, because they talked about the story of the people who were the officers who inspired this movie, as well as the actors going through this process themselves. And in many ways, they were both decisive, and they even like said at the end that they both decided to, given all the events that happened, that the two officers resigned in 2019.
Yes, that was the ending credit tip.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
No, it was pretty much similar. I thought the effects were cool, and then like I thought like I got used to like how the film was progressing, and then it just felt like different again. It felt like a little bit like a mix of the beginning, like with the style. So it threw me off a little bit, but I was just like, oh, interesting way to wrap it up. And then they have the credits at the end. I just didn't know if the pool meant like something deeper than I like.
I don't think so. I think was that actually part of the training process for the cadets?
Maybe. I just don't know. Like I personally don't know.
I'm going off the assumption that it's all part of the training process, because you have to be decisive with certain things. Otherwise, they can get killed, right?
That's where I got it with the gun, right? Like she was struggling, and then
yeah. What I found really fascinating is that the police department of Mexico actually okayed them to do this film.
No, you pay enough for it. Okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why you thought that was a surprise, dude. I mean, you showed up plata, they'll be like, yeah, you wanna, because they know nothing's gonna change. They know nothing's gonna move the needle. They're like, whatever. You're doing this for a niche American audience that probably the only people are gonna watch are people like us. Like, they're not worried about Jack, dude. People in Mexico already know how that works, dude. And that's like you said. That's the saddest part. It's probably they were not concerned about anything. There was no like this movie came out and be like, you know what, our country's president's going like, you know what, this movie we need to do it's just a movie. We need to do an investigation, and next time we do a trade negotiation, we need to talk about this. No, nothing came out of this. It's just a film for again. The only people watching this film are like us. We're like, oh, I already know these problems. Like, it's not getting wider outreach.
No,
which is sad, but. So that's why I said that to your point. That's a logical question, but you already know the answer. So.
I guess deep down I did.
Yeah, it's like they're not. Like, whatever, dude. But probably they'll show them like where they keep the drugs too at this rate, dude. Like, go ahead.
Anyway. So what do you think about this?
I can only laugh because it's so sad. Anyways, this film, I thought, it's a slow burn. I would say it's not a film that you can just flick on.
But that's what documentaries are.
Yeah, I think also it's not a criticism of the film, but unfortunately, I think this film is very niche because there was not a lot of coverage for it. There's not even a Wikipedia summary of this film.
There is a Wikipedia.
There is a Wikipedia, but not like how you only get like a lot of details usually in the film. There isn't. Maybe in the Spanish version of Wikipedia there is. I didn't check that.
There could be. I
even asked ChatGPT about this film. It told me that doesn't know this film, so I was like, okay.
Only you would do that.
And so, but I knew about this film because obviously, I mean,
it's on Netflix.
No, but also like, I mean, I have Mexican relatives who watch this film, so it's
really? They watched it.
Yeah. So it's a very like niche audience, unfortunately.
Sure.
But I thought stylistically, I was really impressed. I thought it's been a while since I can say like a film has really, maybe because I don't watch as many kind of types, but even like this sort of type where they have a drama and they're trying to show like, they're trying to show us a factual story via drama, like the History Channel used to do. But this was like higher quality. I thought a lot of the different styles and when he put him in, the director was good. I thought the performances of the actors were good and actually pretty faithful. I mean, I'm assuming they were pretty faithful. And I thought the camera work was really good in this film. The editing, obviously. I mean, I really don't have any major complaints actually, other than maybe the pacing was kind of rough for this style film.
Which is slow or what?
Yeah, I mean, at times I felt like the dialogue was like too in your face, like maybe.
But you got to think about it like a documentary.
I know. I'm just saying that maybe I'm not even saying too slow. I'm saying like maybe the dialogue not to be so punchy. Either maybe remove words or maybe slow it down even. Because at times I had to rewind just to hear what she was saying. Because I thought
really?
this film.
I got most of it.
This film I was really careful because I thought this film was also trying to make me not just see but also pay attention.
Sure.
And so I was also trying to listen. So I try to watch this without subs. That's the other thing too. So that's why I also had to. My Spanish isn't perfect, so like I had to rewind.
Neither did I put subs on at one point, so I was like, they're talking too fast.
That's what I mean. So sorry to clarify.
Right.
That's why I said that, because I was like, I need to. Because this film, I will say this, I think it works with subs, but I turned them off because I felt like this film was. I don't know why I had this gut feeling, but I thought like I would have and I think I did get a better experience by not having subs. Because when you have subs, your eyes will just cheat, Because I really had to soak in all the visuals too and try to listen. So I had to rewatch. It's the first time I've done it in our podcast. I've had to rewatch 30 minutes of the movie. So this movie actually took me a little bit longer than I thought.
So that's probably what affected your experience then.
Yeah, but I thought it was worth it, so I could really pick up some of the linguistic nuances. So. Yeah, this film, I give it a 8.5 out of 10. It's one of my favorite films so far we've seen this year. So, but then at the end, I feel like it's a bias, but whatever. I'm gonna stick with this score, dude.
I mean, I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10 for the style that it is and what they were trying to go for. Because I was trying to think, I was like, this movie's so unique. I was like, and I can't compare this necessarily to other movies we've done, because it's just like that's not what they were going for.
Yeah.
Right, so I was like, how can I knock this or give it anything less? Yeah, because I was trying to think, I was like, what could they have done better? And then like nothing really came to mind for like what they were trying to do with this movie. No, this is not like a rewatchable kind of movie. It's things that we knew, but it was very interesting and ambitious for what they were trying to go for.
I think a way I would phrase it is it's a very unique experience watching this film.
And I call it ambitious for what they were doing and going for.
Ambitious, which I love, but I think it's a very unique experience where like you could watch a lot of docudramas, but this was like, I feel like it was good. Like you said, ambitious, and it was unique in the sense that for me,
well, they did little things, like you said, the little things like the memos were just such a great touch.
Yeah, and I also will appreciate a film. Again, this is where my bias comes in. I'll always appreciate a film that teaches me a little bit more about Mexico. So, I mean, I have to cope. I have to cop out on that.
Fair enough.
This movie was like about the Ugandan police. I'd be like, oh, 7.
You would still like it. I think you still like it. Yeah.
But doesn't get the emotion.
Doesn't hit. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good film. It was a good film. It was a good one.
Well, I'll probably, just a heads up, I'll probably be looking to actually review some of Luis Palacios' films in the future too. Looks like he has some pretty good ones, so I'm sure.
Apparently the ChatGPT was like, I think you're confused with this other.
With Güeros.
I was like, yeah, and Güeros or Museum, right? And I was like, no, ChatGPT. I know what I'm talking about.
It's interesting they knew his other movies
because he's well known in the Mexican film scene. So he's in
London right now.
He lives in London.
Yeah,
interesting. Of course, he's born and raised in Mexico City. I've noticed that a lot of the like Roma.
That's a big area.
Yeah. And yet I have not been. But I should.
We got to go at some point.
I plan to.
Anyway, do you have any other thoughts?
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that he directed 2 episodes of Narcos. Okay, that's my last thing. That's a show I recommend for the audience too. But
of course you do.
Take that.
Narcos and Narcos Mexico.
No, Narcos Mexico. Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
I could do Narcos Colombia. Narcos Mexico is way superior than Narcos Colombia. I know.
No, that's a hot take.
a lot of people I know disagree with me, but I was like, no,
You
it's
get
better.
triggered.
It's better. I know everybody likes the Escobar character, but I thought what's more realistic for people today to understand is Narcos Mexico.
Well, okay, yes, but what kicked it off was Colombia.
Yeah, but who perfected it or wrongly perfected it was Mexico. Anyways, but yeah, it's but yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and we'll end on that. If you enjoyed our commentary on this topic, please like and subscribe to our channel and leave us any suggestions in the comment section. We'll be sure to get to it.